Hello, I'm Greg Harrison with USDA Market News Service here in St. Joe, Missouri with your national feeder cattle summary this week. Yearling cattle continue to climb higher this week, and they also continue to dominate receipts. For the most part, start the week, yearlings were trading steady to $3 higher, then from midweek on, in a lot of cases, $5 to $7 higher. Feeder cattle buyers continue to battle over these yearlings. A lot of them on offer and all selling with good demand in the Southern Plains this week at the Oklahoma National Stockyards and at OKC West and El Reno. Both offered over 12,000 head of cattle on offer at their sales this week, with most of it being yearling cattle. 79% of the cattle at Oklahoma City averaged over 600 pounds, and 86% of the cattle at OKC West and El Reno averaged over 600 pounds. And in the Northern Plains, buyers also continued to drive the yearling market higher. Last Friday at Fort Pierce, South Dakota, had a special feeder cattle auction selling near 11,000 head, with 78% of them weighing over 600 pounds. They sold over 600 head, weighing between 600 and 650 pound steers, averaging 615 pounds, that sold with a weighted average price of $288.10. And they sold over 1,000 head of 950 pound steers, averaging 929 pounds, sold with a weighted average price of $215.01. And then on Wednesday of this week at the Hub City Livestock Auction in Aberdeen, South Dakota, they sold over 280 head of steers weighing between 800 and 850 pounds, averaging 839 pounds, so with a weighted average price of $228.07. And there are 300 head of value-added steers, averaging 914 pounds, so with a weighted average price of $222.65. A much lighter offering of steer and heifer calves this week opened the week on Monday unevenly steady to $5 lower. Starting out at Joplin Regional Stockyards, they had their light calves under 500 pounds quoted mostly $5 to $10 lower, then from 5 to 700 pounds mostly $5 to $7 lower. And then after Monday, the feeder cattle futures started trading higher, and as they moved higher, a lot of the feeder calves this week also moved higher as well, trading from steady to up places $5 higher. The strength this week in the feeder cattle market was rather surprising. Last Friday, lower futures, and then they had a standoff between the packers and the feedlots, and in most cases just calling cash cattle trade pretty much off last week due to struggling margins. But we last week saw the smallest 5-area trade volume take place at 29,141 head as packers dug in their heels and tried to break prices, and what few cattle traded, they were at lower prices. But then on Monday, cattle futures rallied on Monday, and they continued that rally through Wednesday. On Wednesday, feeder cattle futures were trading mostly over $2 higher for that day. And then box beef prices on Tuesday really surged and had good support on Tuesday, with choice up $3.09, closing today at $247.20, and select was up $4.44 on Tuesday, closing at $240.75. So hopefully box beef prices have found bottom and will continue to trade higher. But looking at some steer and heifer slaughter for the year to date ending May 30th, we're over 650,000 less than a year ago at this time, and a lot of that's been made up with heavier slaughter weights and carcass weights, but still a significant number less than a year ago. USDA's supply and demand report was issued on Wednesday, and looking at the grain trade, pretty much what they expected. Corn, looking at ending stocks, came in 25 million bushels larger than expected at 1.876 billion bushels of corn. That was for the 2014-15 year. And then looking at new crop estimates for the 2015-16, they climbed the same 25 million bushel to 1.771 billion bushel, and looking at an average yield this year of 166.8 bushels per acre. Corn pretty much planted with 91% emerged, and that's compared to 84% last week. And we're still seeing 74% of the corn crop rated good to excellent. Looking at some regional weighted averages this week in north central region, 700 to 800 pound steers about $1 higher at $240.46, 800 to 900 pounds running about $4 higher at $224.13. In the south central regions, 500 to 600 pound steers about $3 lower than last week at $273.38. 600 to 700 pound steers steady with last week at $251.61, and 700 to 800 pounds also running about steady at $228.30, and 800 to 900 pound steers $2 higher at $214.14. That's been your markets this week. Thanks for listening. Be back with you next week.